Hello, welcome or welcome back to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet, weaving, all of the fibre related things. Today's video is my October making wrap up, so I'll be chatting about all of the things that I finished and some of the works in progress that I have been adding to throughout the month of October. Can you believe that we have just started November already this year? Anyway, I have got knitting and spinning to share with you for this video. I do also have a little bit of crochet to share at the end, but it's not my crochet. And I shall leave you with that mysterious statement, and we'll come back to that a bit later at the end of the video. So what am I going to share with you first? I think we'll dive into a little bit of spinning first. So this month, my spinning month felt quite disorganised. But now that I've sat down and gathered my things to share with you, I was quite surprised that I managed to finish 3 skeins of yarn this month, because I feel like I was flitting between lots of different projects. Particularly on my spindles, I have been obsessively starting various little samples and little spinning projects to either test out fibre blends that I have been playing with on my blending board, or just fun colours and little samples that I've been sent that I wanted to get on the spindles. And there was a couple of spins that I started just because I wanted to play with a particular spindle, so I've kind of been all over the place really. And I shared a picture on my Instagram, which I might share here too, where I asked the question, how many spindle spinning projects is too many spindle spinning projects? So yeah, I'll share that with you now because it just kind of shows you what I've got going on on the spindles. So as you can see, quite a few projects in progress, and I'm not going to sit and chat to you about those because if I went through them all we'd be here forever and a day. So today I'm just going to show you my spinning finished objects for October, and one of these is a spindle spun project and the other 2 are wheel spun projects. So I think I'll show you the spindle spun project first. I was having some fun on my blending board and I blended up some rolags from some Corriedale fibre with a little bit of sari silk and a little bit of Angelina sparkle to make some rolags that were inspired colour-wise by my favourite bird, which is the oyster catcher. And if you know the oyster catcher at all, it's a very striking bird, black and white with orange beak and legs. And I was just really interested to see how those highly contrasting yarns with a little pop of colour might spin up. So again, I'll pop a little picture of the rolags up on the screen now so you can see how I started. And this is the yarn that I spun. I worked it entirely on my support spindles and I think it's really nice. Obviously I haven't yet worked with it, but I'm kind of surprised at how this turned out and how much I like it given the high contrast of the colours. So here is my finished yarn. So I deliberately, when I went to ply them, it's just a 2-ply, spun, the singles were spun on my supported spindle and I plied on one of my drop spindles, and I deliberately switched. I had 2 or 3 rolags, I think, I can't remember now, possibly 3, you'll have seen in the picture. So just a small sample to play with, but I deliberately plied them in such a way that I wasn't plying from the same end. I wanted to jumble the colours up as much as possible. I didn't want sort of long sections of black and then a little bit of white and then a little bit of orange, etc, etc. So I deliberately plied from opposite ends of the rolags to try and marl and jumble the colours as much as possible. The rolags were predominantly black, so there are some black stripes in here, but I'm pleased with how the yarn has mixed and marled, and I think it could be quite an interesting yarn to knit up. I at this point have no idea what I'm going to do with this, but I'm sure the perfect project will come along. And it's so super, I wish with spinning that you could, well I wish with everything that you could reach through the camera and have a squish, because this is really so soft and lovely. And you can see it's got like incredible drape, the skein is not sort of sticking up at all. It wants to droop over. So yeah, it's just a really nice yarn. I'm really pleased with it. A fun little spin I'm sure the perfect fun little project will come along for that at some point. I've finished these fairly recently, so I haven't got any details yet of yardage or anything like that, and I really must get better at organising myself so I have that information for you, so that it's a little bit more interesting than me just sort of showing you yarn without any sort of stats to go with it. It's editing Ange here. The advantage of me being a little bit behind with my editing is that in the interim I have managed to figure out the stats on this yarn, so you'll see me editing Ange pop in a few times in this segment. So this ended up being 75 meters for 25 grams, and as I said a minute ago, 2-ply, sort of traditional 2-ply, spun on support spindles, plied on my drop spindle, and it is a sort of heavy fingering sport weight. I haven't yet knit up the swatch, so I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, but based on the meterage and the grams, it's around about sport. The second skein of yarn that I finished was spun on my e-spinner. If you watched my Let's Keep Gnoming video, where I announced we were extending our gnome along, you would have seen this really fun hat, which I've got next to me because I was wearing it earlier. That my lovely friend Jeanette sent me, this beautiful gnome hat that she knit. Not only did she send that in the package, she also sent me a really gorgeous braid of white-faced woodland yarn, dyed by Cat and Sparrow, and I think I've got a picture of the braid before I spun it, so again I'll try and remember to pop that in here. But I just loved the colours. I was just completely fascinated by the really bright green contrasting with the pink and the purple, and I just had to throw it on my e-spinner straight away. My e-spinner happened to be free, so yeah, just a really fun spin. My first ever attempt at spinning with white-faced woodland, and this is my finished skein. So as you can see, the colours are just so much fun, so much fun. The pop of the bright green running through this yarn just makes me smile every time I see it. Yeah, it's just gorgeous, the colours. I did a 2-ply on my e-spinner. Again, I haven't got round to measuring the yardage, which is just shameful because I spun this up earlier in the month, so there's no reason that I couldn't have done that before I podcast. I must get better. Editing me back again. So, measured and accounted for and hopefully correct. So this was 201 meters approximately, and 99 grams, traditional 2-ply, spun all up on my e-spinner. White-faced woodland was a very interesting fibre to spin. It's definitely sort of coarser to the touch than something like a merino or a blue-faced Leicester, but it's not harsh in any sense of the word, and I could definitely wear this next to skin. And in fact, I am contemplating making this a skein that I use as part of a shifty cowl. I was gifted the shifty pattern by my dear friend Erin earlier on this year, or it might have even been towards the end of last year, and I have been meaning to comb my stash and see what yarns I could spin up for it, but immediately that I finished this, it just told me that it needs to be in that shifty cowl, so I needed to come up with 2 other yarns to go along with this. I did feel like I was fighting the fibre slightly while I was spinning it, and I've heard other people, other spinners say that with combed top, this was a combed top preparation, so with combed top the fibre often comes in braids. I'm looking to see if I've got a braid here that I haven't yet spun, so all the fibres are aligned in one direction. And I've heard other spinners say that there is a slightly nicer end to spin from, and then if you start your braid from the other end, sometimes you can get a little bit of resistance from the fibre. And I wasn't really thinking about it when I was spinning the yarn. It wasn't horrible to spin by any means, it just wasn't the easiest spin, and I initially put that down to it being a fibre that I've not spun with before. But then the idea of this, there's a nicer end and a slightly more difficult end of the braid to spin from, popped into my head, and I'm wondering if maybe I'd switched my fibre over and spun from the other end, that I might have made things a little bit easier for myself. I don't know if I'm explaining myself in any way that makes sense sense at all. let's just use this braid as an example. So yeah, I've heard spinners say that if you start spinning from this end, for instance, that might be really nice, but if you start spinning from this other end, you might be going slightly against the direction that the fibres want to lie on top of each other on, which can cause for a little bit of friction in your spinning. So yeah, obviously not something I can play around with now to figure out if that was the case. I guess the easiest way for me to figure out whether it was that or whether it's something about this fibre that I find a little bit more difficult would be to spin up another braid. And I'm fairly sure in my now reasonably substantial fibre stash I do have another braid of white face woodland that I bought quite a while ago, and I just haven't got around to spinning it. So that might be something that I hunt out and try and experiment with. Regardless, it's a lovely skein of yarn, beautiful colours, and I'm really pleased with how the finished skein turned out. The last of my spinning that I have to share with you this month is a braid of fibre that I picked off of my fibre cart. So yeah, I went slightly astray with my spinning this year, as you know, it was always going to be the case, and I still have a whole bunch of braids on that fibre cart that I said I was going to try and spin through this year that haven't been touched. Of course, we've still got a couple of months left, so I reckon I might get another 3 or 4 off that cart if I put my mind to it. In the last few days, my e-spinner became free after I finished the white face woodland, and I just decided I wanted another just for fun spin. So I went straight to my cart. I was good. I didn't get distracted by any new purchases or things that have come into my fibre stash recently. And I went to my fibre cart and I picked out a lovely braid of blue face Leicester BFL that was sent to me by my dear friend Ruth. And I'm not sure if I've got a picture of the skein before I spun it. If I have, I'll pop it in, but I feel like I might have grabbed the braid and started spinning it without taking a photograph. But this has just made for, again, the most beautiful yarn. I love this colour combination. It reminds me of the pastel colours that I saw in the sunsets that I went down to the beach to watch during the summer. And in the braid, the colours were lovely, but in the yarn, I just think they really shine through. It's one of those braids that looks pretty in the fibre form, but then just completely transforms into something else when you spin it up. So this is my finished yarn. So it's a beautiful sort of corally orange colour. There are some bolder parts of sort of rusty orange. Let me try and get that to focus in again. Can you see? Beautiful sort of rusty orange against the more corally colours in the main part of the braid. And there were also some lovely sort of stripes of blue that have toned and muted down and marled with the corally colours. And I spun this fractally, so I split the fibre down into 3 sections, and then I split each of those sections down further. And yeah, I'm really in love with this skein of yarn. Can you tell? I do have a note somewhere where Ruth let me know who the dyer was. I know it was someone reasonably local to her, but I have the note, I think, with another spin. Ruth sent me 2 braids of fibre at the same time, and I think the note is in the bag with the other fibre, which is a spin in progress on my spindle. So I don't have the dyer information to hand, but just yummy. Love it. And always enjoy spinning a bit of blue face Leicester. I spun a 3-ply for this for a change. I haven't spun 3-ply for a while. I tend to go with a 2-ply because I have lots of 100-gram braids, a bit in the same way that I collected a lot of 100-gram skeins of sock yarn. If you want to support a dyer, or if you love a colourway, it's really nice or really easy to pick up 100 grams of the fibre. So I often spin 2-ply just to try and maximise my yardage. But with this, because I didn't have any particular plans with it, I decided to spin 3-ply, and it's made for a beautiful round yarn. And again, it's turned out at my standard sport to sort of DK my default. If I don't try to do anything else, I end up with a sport weight yarn usually. I did have a little bit left over. Inevitably, one of the bobbins runs out before the other. So I do have a little skein of 2-ply as well. If I hold the 2-ply above the 3-ply and do a close-up, you might be able to see the difference in the roundness of the yarn. I think the 2-plies looks sort of slightly fluffier, slightly softer, and the 3-plies a little bit more dense, a little bit more round. But yeah, I had so much fun spinning this and really love the finished yarn. So can you see that, how different the nice round 3-ply is from the slightly sort of softer, fluffier 2-ply. Final visit from Editing Ange, maybe, who knows. What a card crochet. Anyway, so yes, e-spinner, traditional 3-ply, 140 meters and about 86 grams. I did lose a tiny little bit of this in spinning. Sometimes I lose, like, you know, a sliver of thread here and there, but definitely not sort of 15 grams worth. So I think maybe this was slightly less than 100 grams to start with, but super happy with how this turned out. Love it. That's everything for my spinning adventures in October. On to knitting. I have got several finished objects to share. Oh, one of which I've left downstairs, so I need to go and grab that before I finish this section. And I also have several works in progress to share with you as well. So let's share the finished objects. I've gone a little bit hat crazy in the last month. I can't stop knitting hats. So I took part in the lovely Alex from Late Night Knits was hosting her Bats to Hats spin and make along, and I made a video about my Echo hat, so I'm not going to spend too much time chatting about my Echo hat, but I will show it off here in case you did not see that video. So I spun up 2 bats from Velvet and Sixpence. They were dyed by Velvet and Sixpence, and knit them up into this hat pattern, which is the Echo by Woolly Wormhead, and I had so much fun doing this, so much fun. I ran out of yarn at the end, so the crown of my hat, the very crown of my hat, is a slightly different colour, but I don't mind that at all. And yeah, as I say, I'm not going to say too much else about this. If you want to find out more about the process and my thoughts as I went along with this project, there's a whole vlog about it on the channel, so I shall try to remember to link that below. This is going to be a super warm hat. Obviously, being colour work, it's sort of double layered, so roll on the cold winter. I might rue saying that, but I really want to wear that hat. The second hat that I knit was a test knit for the lovely Sarah, who is Wendy House Knits on Instagram. And Sarah put up a call for a test knit for a free hat pattern that has now been published. She's designed the hat with sort of hand spun in mind, but any double knit weight yarn would be fabulous for this hat. It's a really addictive little knit, and here is my version. It's called the Anreg hat. It's a Welsh name and I've completely butchered that pronunciation, I'm sure. I'll pop it on the screen and I'll put a link to the Ravelry page below too. If you're not a Ravelry user and you want a copy of this, either hop on over to Sarah's Instagram or let me know and I can put you in touch. Sarah is willing to email the pattern out to folks because, as I say, it is a free pattern. But it's a really lovely squishy garter hat. It is knit in the round, which means you do have to do rows of purling, so if you're not a fan of that, then I'm sorry, but I think it's worth it for this gorgeous hat. And it has these lines of slip stitches going up the hat to sort of break up that garter. I used one of my very early hand spuns for this. This is a skein of gorgeous fluffy Polworth, which was dyed by my lovely friend Jenny of Owl About Yarn. This was her tiger colourway, and as you can see, it was a combination of lovely oranges and blacks, and I really love how this knit up in this hat. I've got a lot more orange at the bottom and then going into the sort of charcoal grey black more at the top. And I just, yeah, this is a really cute cozy hat. I really love it. And I added a little pom-pom from some, actually I stole a little bit of the Briggs and Little yarn that my lovely friend Judith, hi Judith if you're watching, sent to me because I thought it was a lovely colour to go with the colours in this hat. I did have some of this left over, but I really loved how this hat came out, and I ended up knitting. We went to visit my brother last month and I ended up knitting a little Bali hat for my new niece from the leftovers of this hat. It was kind of like a little Halloween hat for her, so I could have made the pom-pom. This doesn't take that much yarn. I could have made the pom-pom from this, but yeah, I ended up making a somewhat matching hat for me and my niece. Finished object number 3 is a cowl, and I think last month when I did my wrap up, I completely forgot to talk about these yarns. This is a set of yarns that I spun over the summer. I was participating in the Woolen Spinning Spindle Spun Summer Spin Along, and I spun up some little fibre samples dyed by Spin Jones, and the blend of the samples was merino, Manx Lofton and silk. And I spun up these samples. I just loved how the Manx Lofton fibre through the bright colours sort of left a muted sort of brown tone to those colours, and it reminded me that I had some Manx Lofton fibre in my stash that I'd purchased from Feather and Fleece last year. So instead of continuing to spin through my Spin Jones sample box, which was my original intention for Spindle Spun Summer, I went off on a tangent and I washed and carded the Manx Lofton fibre. I think I had about 100 grams or so in my stash to play with, because I decided that it would be lovely to use the natural brown Manx with the mini skeins that I spun. So I spun them all up, and I think I forgot to share that spinning. That was a finished object for the last month. So I'm going to pop a picture on the screen now of my finished yarns. And I just really wanted to use them in a project together, and as sometimes happens, the perfect pattern came along. I caught a sale via Instagram from the designer Amber O'Brien, who had a sale for her Astra hat and cowl. It's a single pattern and you get the pattern for the hat and the cowl, and I decided this would be the perfect project for my Manx Lofton and my Manx Lofton blend yarns. So here is my Astra cowl. This is such an addictive little cowl pattern. Let me pop this on. Let me take my shawl off. I knit the pattern as was, except for I made my cowl much deeper. So I think in the original pattern the cowl is about this wide, something like that. I added an extra pattern repeat and a half, I think, to accommodate all of the 5 different colours that I'd spun in my mini skeins. So this is going to be a super cosy cowl, nice and deep, so you can scrunch it down so you've got plenty of warmth around your neck, but you can pull it up on those cold days. You know, I can almost use it as a hood, or I could definitely like pull it up over my face as almost a mask if I need extra warmth, if it's really chilly. So pleased with this. Some of the colours in the dyed mini skeins were a bit brighter than the others. So tonally, the sort of yellow and the blue stand out a lot better, or a lot more, against the brown than do the sort of 2 shades of purple and the pink. However, I'm not mad. I think it looked lovely nonetheless. These 2 colours are very close here. Look, they are 2 different shades of purple, and I think you can see that quite clearly in the picture of the finished skeins, but they look quite close together. I'm going to be knitting some more of these Astra cowls as gift. I've got a little bit of gift knitting as well as some sock knitting to do throughout November, and that was just a really quick, fun pattern. So I'm looking forward to knitting a couple more Astra cowls. Right, I've got one more finished object to share with you, and I need to just dash away and go and find them. My final finished object for October is a pair of socks for myself, and these are my Hope socks. I cast these on back in December, January as part of the 12 cast-ons make along. I thought this would be one of the first projects that I finished because they're a fairly easy vanilla sock. I've added a knit one slip one pattern every time the colour changed for a little bit of sort of added interest while I was knitting. I'm really glad to have them finished. It's a colourway from West Yorkshire Spinners. This was a Yarndale special colourway from last year, and they're my Hope socks because it was the Hope colourway. A beautiful rainbow skein in effect. There's not too much to say about it, and yeah, I'm just really happy to have another one of my 12 cast-ons off of the needles. We'll be ramping up for the 12 cast-ons this year, so it'll be interesting to see how many more of my 12 cast-ons from last year I'm going to get finished over the coming weeks. I've got 3 projects left on the needles, and I'm hopeful that I might finish 2. I think November is going to be a month where I concentrate on socks for West Midlands Ambulance and also a couple of gift knits that I want to do, and then I'm hoping December I will get back to sort of knitting for me. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So 4 finished objects this month. They're all quite small. 2 hats, 1 cowl, 1 pair of socks. So let's quickly switch into works in progress, and we'll stick with the 12 cast on theme. I have been working on my oohh-er sweater, and this is a project that I had somewhat hoped might be finished throughout the month of October, but as happens, things crop up and get in the way, and it's not finished. But it's getting there. I have, I think, 4 or 5 more rows on the body to go. It's a cropped sweater. It's a bit difficult to show. It has this really nice half brioche detail at the bottom, which doesn't show up hugely in this sort of darker plum purple colour that I've chosen, but it is a really nice detail, and I think it shows up a little bit more in real life than it does on the camera, particularly with this sort of tweedy flecky yarn. So I'd hoped, because it's chunky weight yarn, that I'd have got this finished in the last month, but it wasn't to be, and I'm not really mad. I worked on a lot of other nice projects, and when I cast on this cowl, I just couldn't knit on anything else. I just love this project so much that everything else went on the back burner. And that meant no finished sweater. But the other thing that slows me down a little bit, so although it knits up fairly quickly in terms of the Rogue being sort of chunky yarn on, I think it's 6.5mm needles, that size needle, this size needle, does start to hurt my hands after a little while, so I can only knit sort of 3 or 4 rows at a time before I have to put this down. But this is not going to be a priority for me over the coming weeks. I will keep that next to my chair downstairs, and hopefully I'll pick up and add a row or 2 here and there, and we'll see if I can make a little bit of progress on that alongside the other projects that I want to work on this month. Other works in progress, what else have I got to share with you? That is not a work in progress. I don't know why that is here. This is a work in progress. I have started and almost finished a pair of scrappy socks for West Midlands Ambulance. I raided the bag of leftovers that the lovely Caroline and her mum donated to me for use in heels, toes and cuffs for the socks for West Midlands Ambulance. As I haven't got any sock tubes at the moment, I didn't want my sock needles to be idle for that cause, so I have been working on a pair of scrappy socks, and I've been working on them concurrently on 2 separate needles, but knitting from the same sort of ball of yarn. I've been doing 10 rows on one sock, 10 rows on the other sock. I've just started on the first sock what will be my final 10 rows before I put in the toe. So again, I'm very hopeful that these will be finished in the next day or so, and they can be boxed up and sent to Jeanette. I lied earlier. It's editing Ange again. I'm getting sick of the sight of this face. Editing face. I just thought it might be worth me hopping in to say, obviously the scrappy socks are now finished, so I'm kind of giving myself away a little bit today with how disorganised and out of order I am with my editing. But yeah, if you're thinking, hang on a minute, weren't these socks finished in the last video? If you watched the Socks for West Midlands Ambulance video, you're right, they are finished, because I recorded that one after this one, but I'm only just getting around to editing this one. So there. I have got 2 more works in progress to share with you. I've got another hat. I'm test knitting the white heart hat pattern for the lovely Alex of Late Night Knits, and I am knitting mine. It's a really lovely so far ribbed hat pattern, and I'm knitting mine from some mini skeins, naturally dyed by Charlie Button Yarns, in a double knit weight. It's a Texel blend, and this is what I have so far. I've got 3 stripes. I've got 5 colours to knit altogether. It's a fold over sort of double brim hat, so that second colour is going to disappear somewhat under the brim if you want to wear it as a beanie rather than a slouchy hat. But yeah, I'm on the last legs of this now. I've got a couple more rows before I start the crown decreases, and then that will fly off the needles because the rows will get shorter and shorter. Not long to go on that hat. And you might be wondering, Angela, why are you knitting all of these hats? Because as far as we can see on these podcast episodes, you only have one head. And it's true, I do only have one head. But I am actually planning on donating a whole bunch of hats that I've knit recently and in the past. The UK Hand Knitting Association have their Hats for Homeless appeal going on at the moment, and I think you can donate hats until the end of November. I hope I've got the dates right. And I'm going to be going through all of the hand knit hats that I own, because I have loads of them. I really enjoy knitting hats, but there are a few that I wear again and again, and others which get a little bit neglected. And I of course have my new favourite gnome hat, which is going to be one that I wear tons this winter. Decided to donate a bunch of the hats that I've knit recently, and also, as I say, some from the past. I'm going to have a good sort through my box of knitted stuff and wash anything that I can bear to let go. So yeah, don't worry, I don't have extra heads that you don't see here on the podcast that I need to keep warm. I'm going to be donating. One more work in progress to share with you, and this was a little bit of an impromptu cast on, but not really. You might remember last month I showed off the John Arbon handspun that I'd finished, the fibre that I started spinning for this year's Tour de Fleece, and I knew that I wanted to knit it up into an astragal sweater, so I actually cast on for that project. I told myself originally that I wasn't going to cast on for that project until I'd finished my Ursa. In the back of my head, I also was thinking, if I don't cast it on, it might not get cast on for months, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And I just really wanted to start knitting with this yarn, and now the project's on the needles, I can knit on it as and when, but I just didn't want that lovely sweater quantity that I'd spun to sit there languishing, just waiting for me to find the time to cast on. So yeah, here is my astragal progress. I've finished the yoke chart. The yoke is a lovely leaf design, which is all a bit scrunched up here on this size needle at the moment. I think you can just about make out one of the leaf motifs in there. This yarn, I knew the motif wouldn't show up super clearly because my yarn is a little bit variegated, but I'm pleased with how it looks. And as I say, once this is actually blocked out and not scrunched up on a teeny tiny little needle, that motif is going to be a lot easier to see. There you go. I think you can see what I mean. But I'm going to be, again, slowing down on that project a little bit over the coming month. What I think I'm going to do is actually leave this one up here out of the way for now, and try and work on my Ursa. And then once Ursa is done, I'm going to come back and pick this one up. So yeah, that's all of my works in progress. Four finished objects and 4 works in progress. Oh, I'm just reminded that I finished another thing this month, and it popped out of my head because it's hanging down on my mantelpiece. I knit a really lovely little autumn wreath, and I have a vlog all about that process over on my Patreon page. I will pop in a little video shot of my wreath hanging up on my mantle downstairs. I knit it from lots of little scraps of hand spun yarn. If you're interested in watching that making video, then you can hop on over to my Patreon page. You'll find the link below, and you can sign up for just as little as £1 a month and support the content that I make here. And each month there's an extra video for you to watch over there on Patreon. So yeah, if you're interested in that, then links below. How could I forget? I knew there was something else. I was looking at my pile of finished objects thinking that's not everything that I worked on. There we go, came to me in the end. Right, before I wrap up, I teased at the beginning of the video that I have a little bit of crochet to share, and I do hope that the lovely Kim won't mind me sharing this, because I didn't ask she would be okay with me to share it, but I'm sure she will be. If you don't know already, Kim is Blue Cherub 82, I think, on Instagram, and here on YouTube, and I'll pop a link to Kim's channel below. And she is a crocheter extraordinaire. And I reached out to Kim asking if she would crochet something for me, because I want to gift a few things to my lovely new niece for Christmas. And as you know, crochet and me don't always get on, and I have got a couple of things that I want to knit for my niece, and also I want to work on socks for West Midlands Ambulance and do a couple of other gift knits. So I knew I just wouldn't have time to squeeze it all in. So I reached out to Kim and asked if I could commission her to make one of her amigurumis that she makes. My little niece Imogen is obsessed with a show on Netflix called Dinosaur Train. She's only like 5-6 months old at this point, and so I'm sure she can't really understand what's going on the screen, but for some reason this one show has just kind of captivated her, and so I asked Kim if she would crochet a dinosaur for me to gift to Immy for Christmas, and this is the gorgeous It's just adorable. This is the gorgeous T-Rex that the lovely Kim has crocheted up for me. I believe the T-Rex in the show is orange. Perfect. So just how adorable is that? Love it. So thank you so much, Kim, for allowing me to hijack your crochet plans and for making this for me. Kim's busy preparing for a couple of craft fairs at the moment, but she very, very kindly said that she would whip this up, and she'd done it in no time at all. So I'm so, so grateful, and I know that Imogen is going to love this. So now I just need to get on and knit the things that I'm going to knit for her. Yeah, at least I've got a backup gift now if I don't get to it. Not only did Kim send me the dinosaur, she surprised me. And I literally squealed when I opened the package. It just arrived this morning, so it's the 2nd of November as I'm recording this, so I'm glad I didn't quite get round to recording this at the very end of October. Kim participated in our gnome along, and I'm going to pop up a video announcing the winners of that make along. Kim crocheted the most adorable gnome, and she sent it to me for my little gnome collection, and I couldn't believe it when I opened the package. Look at this. How cute is this? It's a gorgeous little gnome. He's got this adorable jacket. Ooh, ooh, look, he's naked. Ooh, naked gnome. Naked gnome on the podcast. Oh, he's not quite naked, look. I lie. He's white. He's got a white t-shirt on. That was me getting carried away at the thought of naked gnomes. Let's put his rain jacket back on. And he's got his hat. He kind of reminds me of a lifeguard for some reason. I don't know why. I guess a fisherman, isn't he? Fisherman gnome in that great big waterproof coat. Love it so much. So I need to have a little shuffle behind me, a shuffle around, so that I can... Oh, he just about fits there. But I think there's a gnome missing from that spot, because there's a gnome down on my mantelpiece at the moment. So yeah, I need to have a rejig behind me. Oh God, he looks so cute, doesn't he? Look at those bits. This moose here was also knit by Kim, and I've got my lovely orangutan that was a gift from Ellie behind there. Amazing. Love my little gnome shelf. Thank you so, so much, Kim, for that wonderful surprise. I was just absolutely, absolutely thrilled to receive that gnome. I don't know how you could part with it, because there's so much work gone into that. Making his little outfit. It's just amazing. I really must wrap things up, because I've been recording this in little sections, but I think it might be another long one, which means a lot of editing time for me. As always, tell me in the comments below what you managed to make in October. Did you finish anything? Have you been working on a big project? Have you started gift knits? I'm behind with my gifting, and yeah, I'm starting, not that I'm going to be doing much, but I'm starting to feel the pressure that we put on our own selves building up, because there are a few things that I want to make this year. I don't tend to gift a lot, but there are a few bits that I want to make. So yeah, I need to get cracking. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you're up to. I hope you have enjoyed this month's wrap up. I will be back again soon with some more content here on the channel. If you would like to support the content that I make here, again, there is a link to my Patreon and also to my Ko-fi page below, and the lovely Patreons and the supporters via Ko-fi are the reason that I'm able to upload as often as I do. My upload schedule has been a little bit choppy over the last couple of weeks, and it might continue to be so for the next couple. We've got a family visit later on this month, which I cannot wait for, and also we're having a few other bits and pieces, jobs done around the house that have needed doing for a while, so things are a little bit in a state of disruption here. And it's not always easy for me to sit down and record, but I'm going to squeeze in as much as I can, and I've got a few vlogs in progress that just need me to find the time to edit. So hopefully I will be reasonably regularly uploading throughout November, but if I do go missing here and there for a week or so, don't worry. It's just life getting in the way. Stop waffling, stop waffling. Thank you so much for being here. If you have enjoyed the video and you're not a subscriber, I'd love for you to subscribe. Leave the like if you have enjoyed the video, and of course, please comment. I'd love to chat to you below. I'll be back again soon with some more making content, and until we do get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.